I can try, ma'am. Wait.
Okay, chalo, let Manisha try and Gayaz can start.
Yeah. Let me know if you are unable to do it, then I shall also try.
ओपन रहता हूँ कौन सी कौन है देख दिखा दे सके अब अपना कैमरा ओपन कर
Anyone can copy paste in the chat box, then I'll send in the other
तेरे
groups.
मेरी नहीं आ रही मैंने
Gayaz, please be loud and clear and don't rush, because otherwise we lag behind in reading the presentation and understanding it. Okay, you can start.
Gayaz, you are unaudible.
He seems to be mute.
Yeah.
Gayaz, unmute yourself. Gayaz.
Should I write on the chat box?
Yes.
No, he should be able to hear us.
He has unmuted himself. I don't know why we could not hear.
Yeah, Gayaz, please unmute yourself.
Ma'am, can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah.
Now
Now
we
we
can.
can. Now, yeah. Now we can. Yeah.
Try to be little loud and clear.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening to everyone. Today we are going to see about analgesics, and my moderator is Dr. Shipra, ma'am. Objectives to learn. Today we are going to see about pain, mechanism of pain and its pathway, opioid analgesics, classification, receptors, pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of it, and its clinical uses, and non-opioid analgesics. Coming to pain, according to International Association for the Study of Pain, pain is defined as an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage or described in terms of such damage. So by now, everyone would have experienced a pinprick injury from where the sensation that pulp of the little left index finger is sensed by the somatosensory cortex, which is the sensory component, and while uncupping the needle, we feel an unpleasant emotional component, which is done by the limbic or amygdala. So mechanism of pain, the experience of
IASP? Sorry, what is IASP?
International Association for the Study of Pain, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, so pain has two components. One is sensory and one is emotional, and both the components are equally important. Okay, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Mechanism of pain. The experience of pain involves a series of complex neurophysiological processes, collectively termed nociception, with four distinct components. It has transduction, transmission, perception, and modulation. In transduction, the chemical, physical, or mechanical noxious stimuli causes cell damage, which leads to the release of sensitizing chemicals likely prostaglandins, bradykinin, serotonins, substance P, and histamine, which causes the nociceptors to generate an action potential from which the action potential is transmitted. So in transmission, from the periphery side, it is transmitted to the spinal cord and to the brainstem, and from there to the cortex. So after the perception of pain in the cortex, it sends a message to the brainstem to modulate the pain to decrease or increase it, which is done by the endogenous opioid mechanical system. Nociceptors. Nociceptors are the free nerve endings, which are of two types, A delta fibers and C fibers. A delta fibers are densely myelinated with faster conduction velocity of 5 to 30 meters per second, and it transmit sharp localized pain and contributes to the neospinothalamic pathway and a neurotransmitter released by the A delta fibers or glutamate. In C fibers, they were unmyelinated and slower conduction potential of 0.5 to 2 meters per second. They transmit throbbing, burning, dull, diffuse pain and contributes to the paleospinothalamic pathway, and the neurotransmitters released by them is substance P.
So basically, the somatic pain is mediated by A delta fibers, and
the
the
visceral
pain is by the C fibers. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And the ascending pathway, it is the lateral spinothalamic pathway which transmits the pain sensation. So when the noxious stimulus is given, the sensory nerve fiber, that is the A delta or C fibers, transmit the pain sensation from the peripheral side
Can you also show via this diagram if you have a pointer or a pencil?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
After we get the noxious stimulus from here, the transmission is transmitted from the A delta fibers to the spinal cord, dorsal horn of spinal cord, the substantia gelatinosa, where the second order neuron starts. The second order neuron crosses to the opposite side at the same level and ascends upwards to the thalamus, and thalamus is a relay station where the second order neurons gives the relay, and third order neuron starts from the thalamus and it sends the information from the thalamus to the cortex.
Please
So
show
during
where
the
the
second order
thalamus
neuron,
is. Yeah.
yes, ma'am, here it is thalamus. From
Yeah.
the thalamus, the neurons are projected towards the cortex. During the second order neuron transmission, the A delta fibers directly go towards the thalamus, but the C fibers gives the projections to reticular formation, periaqueductal gray matter, and other areas of hypothalamus, parabrachial nucleus, superior colliculus, and periaqueductal gray matter. So importance of reticular formation here is reticular formation is concerned with consciousness, arousal, and sleep awake cycle. So after surgery, if we ask the patient on post-operative day one, the patient ask the patient, how did you sleep or not? He will respond, no, I didn't sleep because of pain. That pain is due to the C fibers, which gives the sensation to the reticular formation. So the reticular formation activates the thalamus and keeps the cortex awake. Basically, the mechanisms due to the C fibers giving the projection to the reticular formation and keeping us awake during the night.
It is also important in the affective component of the pain. Okay. So is
Yeah.
everyone clear about the first, second, and the third neurons? Anyone having a doubt? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. The descending pathway, the cerebrospinal pathway, the primary inputs from the cortex after receiving the pain perception gives the projection to the periaqueductal gray matter and nucleus raffimagnus, from where the endogenous opioid system begins. The neurons from the periaqueductal gray matter and nucleus raffimagnus sends the information to the inhibitory interneurons in the dorsal gray horn. The inhibitory interneurons releases the endogenous opioids and inhibit the ascending presentations.
Again, please show through a marker.
Yes, ma'am. When the perception is received in the sensory cortex, the message is sent to the periaqueductal gray matter and the raffimagnus, from where the afferent fibers reach the dorsal horn of spinal cord and stimulate the interneurons, from where the endogenous opioids are released to inhibit the postsynaptic neurons that are going ascending towards the thalamus.
Okay.
So, in the dorsal horn of neurons, when the endogenous opiates released by the interneurons binding to the opioid receptors leads to the conformational change and activation of the G protein coupled receptors, which are the opioid receptors. Opioid receptors are G protein coupled receptors. They were activated by the binding of opiates. So it leads to the inhibition of adenylate cyclase and inhibition of voltage gated sodium channels and activation of inward rectifier potassium channels. So this leads to the net effect of this is decreased release of neurotransmitters from the presynaptic neuron and hyperpolarization of postsynaptic neuron. So the impulse generated from the postsynaptic neuron is decreased by hyperpolarization, and the neurotransmitters from the presynaptic neurons is decreased. With this, the pain transmission is interrupted. So these diagrams deposits the action of different drugs at different areas. The peripheral receptors are peripheral area where the free nerve ending, where the chemical nauseating stimulus like histamine, substance P release that are inhibited by the NSAIDs and local anesthetics because they inhibit the prostaglandin synthesis. And local anesthetics act on the primary afferent neurons, and local anesthetics and alpha agonist acts on the dorsal root ganglions. Opiates, ketamines, and gabapentins act on the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, which is the substantia gelatinosa.
But in addition, they have a central action also.
Yes, ma'am. In central action from the periaqueductal gray and rostroventral medulla, they will act, ma'am.
Yes.
This
So,
is very important slide that Gyas has shared. Please, everyone. Very important to know the site of action of each and every analgesic, and he has shown it very nicely in this slide.
Can you explain once more?
Yeah, Gayas, please explain once more.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The pain arises from the peripheral side where the noxious stimulus is given. So during the noxious stimulus, there is a release of chemical mediators. So chemical mediators like substance P, prostaglandins are released from the noxious stimulus, which is inhibited by the NSAIDs. NSAIDs normally inhibit the prostaglandin synthesis and other noxious substances. So that is
Yes.
inhibited by the NSAIDs. And local anesthetics, they block the sodium channels. So
Yes,
which
which
are
are present
responsible
on the
for the
nerve endings.
nerve
Yeah.
endings, which are responsible for the transmission of action potential. So local anesthetics blocks these action potentials and inhibit the pain pathway here. And alpha agonist and local anesthetics act on the dorsal root ganglion to inhibit the transmission here. Opiates, ketamine, gabapentins act most commonly on the dorsal substantia gelatinosa. And central action is done by tricyclic antidepressants, SSRIs, where they actually in endogenous pathway the noradrenergic neurotransmitters and the serotonergic nerve fibers stimulate the interneuron. So
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So the
Let me just.
tricyclic antidepressants and serotonin receptor releasing enzyme inhibitors increases serotonin and noradrenaline combination in the nervous system, leads to the stimulation of interneurons, which releases the endogenous peptides.
Yeah, let me just brief it up. So basically, we can divide the analgesics in peripheral and central. So peripheral are mainly the most important clinically are NSAIDs because they are involved in prostaglandin inhibition by COX inhibitor pathway. Local anesthetics will always act on the nerve endings because they act primarily on the sodium channels, right? Now, opioids, they act on the spinal cord. They have a peripheral spinal cord as well as a central mechanism, and opioids act through the various opioid receptors, which we will talk later. And alpha 2 agonists will act on the alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors, and tricyclic antidepressants and SSRI, they basically inhibit the reuptake of serotonin and noradrenergic. So the increase of noradrenergic and serotonin leads to inhibition of the pain. So this is a brief overview of the mechanisms of various agents which cause the inhibition of pain. Is everyone under clear now?
Shall I move on, ma'am?
Yeah.
Yes. They can ask questions in on the text if
Yes,
they
ma'am.
want.
Analgesia, absence of pain perception or insensibility to pain without loss of consciousness. Analgesics are the drugs that relieve pain by acting on the central nervous system or on peripheral pain mechanism without affecting the consciousness. The analgesics are broadly defined into opiate analgesics and non-opiate analgesics. Opiates. Opium is a dark brown resinous material obtained from the Paparum somniferum, normally called as the poppy plant. The Sumerians referred it as hugel or plant of joy, which they used for the recreational purpose. Opiate. Opiate is a chemical isolated or extracted from the poppy plant. Opioids. Opioids are naturally occurring or synthetic compounds that bind to the opiate receptors. So chemical structure of opiate. The active component of opium is divided into two chemical classes, phenanthrene alkaloids and the benzyl isoquinoline alkaloids. The phenanthrene alkaloids are active compounds and the benzyl isoquinoline alkaloids are insignificant in analgesic actions. Only the phenanthrene alkaloid compounds as the analgesic compounds. So the most of the opiates which are produced synthetically contains the phenanthrene alkaloids. The three rings of phenanthrene core are composed of 14 carbon compounds. The fourth piperidine ring includes tertiary amine nitrogen. The ionized state of the drug is necessary for strong binding at the anionic site of the opiate receptor. The levorotatory isomer is biologically active for its action. Semi-synthetic opiates are produced by chemical modification of morphine. So in this table, the morphine structure is given here, and this chemical modification leads to the other drugs. And synthetic opioids are manufactured rather than chemical modifications. So in our body, there is endogenous opioid ligands, which are endorphins, dynorphins, and enkephalins, which actually bind to the opioid receptors in our body, and it contains a specific sequence classification of opiates. It's based on the origin, structure, and action. And based on origin, it is divided into natural, semi-synthetic, and synthetic. And basis of structure, it is divided into morphine derivatives, phenylpiperidine derivatives, benzomorphine derivatives, and methadone derivatives. On the basis of action, it is divided into pure agonist, agonist antagonist, partial or weak agonist, and pure antagonist. Opioid
Just a
receptors.
second. Can you just go back to the previous slide?
Yes,
Yeah, classification, three main types. So on the basis of structure, only these two categories, morphinium and phenylpiperidine. These are important. Phenylpiperidine is basically all synthetic. Pethidine, fentanyl. Morphine is natural. And yeah, the next slide, please. And what do you mean by agonist, antagonist? This is in relation to the various opioid receptors. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, can you just briefly tell Gayas, pure agonist, antagonist, partial agonist, and pure antagonist?
Yes, ma'am. Pure agonists are the compounds which are more affinity towards the opioid receptors and gives the action of the drug. Agonist and antagonist there are three types of receptors: mu, kappa, and delta receptors. Agonist and antagonist drugs have specific opioid agonistic property and antagonistic property. Antagonistic property doesn't mean that it will inhibit or decrease or give another action, but it is the property that they have more affinity and bind to the receptors and displace the agonist. So the action of the agonist is not done well. It is a mechanism of agonist and antagonist.
Yep.
And pure antagonist is has the same characteristic that it has more affinity towards the opioid receptors and displaces the pure agonist.
Yes. Next.
Opioid receptors. These are seven transmembrane G protein coupled receptors classified as mu, kappa, and delta receptors, which are named after the ligands found to bind to them or the tissues of origin. Mu has more affinity to morphine, and kappa receptor has more affinity to ketocyclizocin, and delta is from the tissue origin mouse vas deferens. Location: primarily the opioid receptors are located in perioccipital gray matter, locus coeruleus, and rostroventral medulla. In the spinal cord, it is most commonly seen in interneurons, primary afferent neurons in the dorsal horn. Outside the CNS, it is seen in sensory neurons and immune cells. So this table gives about the difference of mu, delta, and kappa, agonist and antagonist, and its action. All the receptors have the same action, which inhibition of adenylyl cyclase and inhibition of voltage gated calcium channels and activation of invert rectifier potassium channels.
Yep.
Mu receptor, it has high affinity towards morphine, and the endogenous opioid ligand is endorphin, which binds to the mu receptors. Mu1 receptors mediate the supraspinal analgesia, and mu2 mediate the spinal analgesia, respiratory inhibition, and constipation. Actions given by mu receptors are analgesia, respiratory depression, constipation, bradycardia, and euphoria specific to endorphin, and meiosis, depression of cough reflex, and attenuation of parareceptor reflex.
So the most important actions of opioid analgesics are mediated through mu receptors. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Kappa receptors, agonist is ketocyclizocin, and endogenous opiates is dynorphin A. Actions given by the kappa receptors are analgesics, constipation, sedation, dysphoria, hallucination, meiosis, and increased diuresis. It is in contrast to the normal mu receptors, where dysphoria and diuresis is done by kappa receptor.
Yes, and the most important function of the kappa receptor is dysphoria, which is in contrast to the mu receptor. So all the drugs which are agonist at kappa receptor will show certain kind of dysphoric behavior when given in excess.
Delta receptors, the agonists are enkephalins, with it synergistic the activities of mu receptors, and action is same to the mu receptors. Analgesia, respiratory depression, constipation, increased GH release, inhibit dopamine release, urinary retention, and it causes physical dependence. Pharmacokinetics, the physicochemical properties. Opiates are weak bases when dissolved. It dissociates into protonated and free base fraction. The free base fraction is more lipid soluble, and the opioid receptor recognizes the drug in protonated form. So the intensity of opioid depends upon the ionized concentration. Protein binding. Normally, all the opioids bind to albumin and alpha-1 acid glycoprotein. Morphine binds to albumin, and all fentanyl congeners bind to the alpha-1 acid glycoprotein. The speed of onset and duration of action depends on the lipid solubility, protein binding, and degree of ionization at physiological pH. So in this table, the unionized proportion of alpha-fentanyl is 90%, which leads to the rapid action. The rapid onset of alpha-fentanyl and remifentanil is due to its unionized composition at physiological pH, where the dissociation constant of it is less than 7.4, that is 6.5 and 7.1, which leads to rapid action, and it gives a effective site blood-brain equilibration within 1.4 minutes and within 1.1 minutes. 1.1 minute is given by remifentanil and 1.4 minutes is given by alpha-fentanyl.
Yeah, also this octanol water partition, it depicts the lipid solubility and is an indirect surrogate marker for potency. So as you can see, sufentanil is 1778. Okay, so it is the most potent of all the analgesics, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And comparing to the volume of distribution, fentanyl has more volume of distribution. So it has 75% of fentanyl which we are given in IV, it goes to the peripheral tissues, and from that it is released at a later time, which causes delayed depression.
And can you please tell about the context sensitive half-time also? What is it? What is context sensitive half-time? Yeah.
Contact sensitive
Yeah.
half-time. Contact sensitive half-time is 50% decrease in drug concentration after and continuous infusion, after the stoppage of continuous infusion. In this regard, fentanyl has more contact sensitive half-time because due to its large volume of distribution. After the fentanyl is given, it is redistributed in large amount in peripheral tissues, after which it gets saturated. So the saturated tissues release the drug to the central compartment. So when 50% of drug is metabolized in the blood, the next 50% from the peripheral tissues enters the blood. So which makes the fentanyl to be in a higher level.
And what about remifentanil? Why it is context insensitive?
Remifentanil is contact sensitive because due to its specific structural property, it has ester linkage, and it is degraded by blood and tissue non-specific esterases. So the elimination and clearance of remifentanil is so fast, and it is not stayed in blood. So the contact sensitivity time of remifentanil is 4 minutes. So after giving a continuous infusion, the remifentanil will clear off within 4 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Next.
Morphine is low lipid solubility, and it is well absorbed after oral, and it has significant first pass metabolism. Orally, it is 20% bioavailable. 1 milligram of IV morphine is equal to 4 milligram of oral morphine. Morphine has slow onset and long duration of action with high dissociation constant of 8 and 20% remains unionized. Protein binding is mainly to albumin, and it has a high hepatic extraction ratio. High hepatic extraction ratio means that the drug which you are given is metabolized on the basis of the blood supply to the liver and not due to the enzyme activity of the liver. So if the blood supply is more, the drug will be cleared very more, and if the blood supply of the liver is compromised,
Gayaz. This is not hepatic extraction ratio. Hepatic extraction ratio is an indirect marker of the enterohepatic circulation, and it denotes the oral bioavailability. So high hepatic extraction ratio means when a drug is given orally, so a major amount of it will be taken up by the liver and metabolized there. That is why oral bioavailability is only 20% with morphine, because it has a high hepatic extraction ratio. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So metabolism of morphine is conjugation with glucuronic acid in hepatic and extrahepatic sites. After giving IV morphine, it is distributed in the body. In obstetrics, if you give morphine, it crosses placenta and causes neonatal depression, and it has slow penetration in the brain due to its low lipid solubility, and it moves out slowly. So the analgesic and respiratory depression does not correlate with the plasma levels and the brain concentration. The drug in the plasma concentration does not correlate with the drug concentration in the brain, because the entry of drug into the brain is delayed due to its lipid solubility. Organ of elimination, it is eliminated by hepatic mechanism. It is where it is divided into morphine 3-glucuronide and morphine 6-glucuronide. Morphine 3-glucuronide is 90% and morphine 6-glucuronide is 10%. Morphine 3-glucuronide is inactive but morphine 6 glucuronide is active and it has a potent mu-opioid agonist. The pharmacology of action is similar to morphine and it is excreted via kidney. So in case of renal failure, if the drug is given, action is prolonged and it may cause respiratory depression in the patient. So it should not be preferred for renal failure patients. And the drug taken up by the lung is less.
So I want to ask one question. Any volunteer? Ananya is there? Ananya? Dr. Anjali, Ananya is not there. Ananya?
Hello.
Ananya, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Good
So
afternoon.
liver failure, if you have a patient with deranged liver function, which opioid will you use? Morphine or fentanyl? Or remifentanil?
Ma'am, I'll use remifentanil.
And why remifentanil?
Ma'am, because morphine can cause hepatotoxicity.
Morphine will cause hepatotoxicity.
Ma'am, because morphine gets metabolized by liver, and in cases of hepatic failure, morphine toxicity can take place.
And suppose you don't have remifentanil, and what is the advantage of remifentanil? Does it undergo hepatic elimination?
Ma'am, remifentanil is short acting.
And suppose you don't have remifentanil is not metabolized by the liver, no? You were just told it has a very short context sensitivity half-life also. It is context insensitive, है ना?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
what about if you don't have remifentanil then?
Ma'am, then the next alternative we can use fentanyl.
And if you don't have fentanyl then? There are many institutes which don't even have fentanyl at times. Sometimes even we are in short supply. So suppose you don't have fentanyl and you have a patient with deranged liver function, will you use morphine or will you not give any opioid? Huh? Will you take care of the pain? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Then how will you use morphine?
What will you do?
Ma'am, we can use other analgesics.
What can you do with the dose of
But
morphine,
yes,
or can you do anything with morphine if you have only that analgesic as an available option?
Ma'am, we can reduce the dose of morphine.
What else? Reduce the dose and very important.
Ma'am, we can change the route of administration.
Are you sure? Huh? You can increase the dosing interval. Okay,
Yes.
so suppose if you're giving to a normal patient after 2 hours or 3 hours, probably you can give after 6 hours. Because elimination is going to take time, and even if the elimination happens, you have just understood that even the metabolites can be active. Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
they need to be excreted from the body, right?
Yes, ma'am.
also
Okay,
as
and
you said,
ultimately elimination will happen via kidney, and even the kidney function gets affected in liver dysfunction. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So you will not say ki I will not give morphine. If that is the only drug, you have to take care of pain. Okay.
also as you said, you will use other analgesics as well. You will combine morphine and use additional analgesics. You can also use regional anesthesia.
Yes, depending
along with
on
morphine.
the coagulation profile, you will decide how much regional anesthesia you can provide. Okay? But whatever you study, whatever you are listening or understanding in the classes, please learn to apply that in the daily anesthetic management. Okay? I think we can continue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Gyas. Thank you.
Okay.
Fentanyl, it is highly lipid soluble and extensively distributed in the body. 80% it is plasma protein bound to alpha-1 acid glycoprotein, and pK is 8.4, which makes it unionized fraction less than 10%. The filling up of tissue compartments make the duration of action less for small doses and large for large doses. metabolized by N-demethylation, producing a norfentanyl, hydroxypropionyl fentanyl, and hydroxypropionyl norfentanyl. So after IV infusion of fentanyl, it is extensively distributed in the body, where 75% of it is taken by the lung, and the lung acts as a capacitor, tending to reduce the peak drug concentration. Onset of action is therefore slower as compared to alfentanyl and remifentanil. And it has a high hepatic extraction ratio, and the blood passing through the liver is completely cleared of the drug, leaving into norfentanyl. The intrahepatic circulation gives the secondary peak to plasma levels after 2 hours or after some hours of last IV dose to release sequestered drug from GIT and lungs.
Okay.
So, ma'am?
No, nothing. Carry on. Yeah.
Sulfentanyl is highly lipid soluble, 90% protein bound, and the volume of distribution is more than alfentanyl but less than fentanyl. So pulmonary first pass uptake is similar to fentanyl and binds to alpha-1 acid glycoprotein, metabolized by N-dealkylation at the piperidine nitrogen and by O-demethylation. Alfentanyl is also lipid soluble but less than fentanyl, and its pKa is 6.5 and 90% unionized fraction responsible for its rapid onset of action. It is 90% protein bound to alpha-1 acid glycoprotein, and it has a very small volume of distribution. Piperidine N-dealkylation leads to the formation of noralfentanyl, and amide N-dealkylation leads to the formation of N-phenylpropionamide. Metabolism altered in liver dysfunction, and its clearance is markedly influenced by the cytochrome P53A4 activity. Alteration in cytochrome P50 is done by erythromycin, which inhibits the metabolism, which inhibits the enzyme, so the action of alfentanyl is prolonged. Remifentanil, it is highly lipid soluble, has small volume of distribution, and it has a main characteristic rapid clearance due to its extra linkage, which is susceptible for hydrolysis by blood and tissue non-specific esterases. The pharmacokinetics is uninfluenced by liver and renal disease. Pharmacodynamics, effect on central nervous system, it causes analgesia, sedation, euphoria, respiratory depression, meiosis, muscle rigidity, nausea and vomiting, constipation, urinary retention, pruritus, and thermoregulation in shivering. Opiates are seen as depressants. In the absence of hyperventilation, the cerebral blood flow, cerebral metabolic rate, and cerebral oxygen consumption is reduced. In presence of hyperventilation, the hypercarbia sets in, and it causes vasodilatation and increases the cerebral blood flow. With opiates, minimal effects are seen in intracranial pressure. Opiates decrease the minimal alveolar concentration of inhalational drugs and induction agents in a dose-dependent manner. They do not possess anticonvulsant action on the contrary. On the contrary, they may cause neuroexcitatory phenomena in the form of tonic-clonic movements and seizure-like activity. Analgesia. The spinal analgesia is given by the action on substantia gelatinosa, and supraspinal action is done by the midbrain, medulla, limbic system, and cerebral cortex. The poorly localized visceral pain is relieved more effectively than the sharply defined somatic pain. Preemptive analgesia. Preemptive analgesia is most commonly used to decrease the dose required after noxious stimulation.
What is preemptive analgesia? What is preemptive analgesia? Yeah.
Ma'am, preemptive analgesia is.
You have already written it.
Yes, ma'am. Opiate dose given before the exposure to noxious stimulus is less than the dose required after noxious stimulus.
Yes, that is preemptive.
Mechanism
only opioids can be used. Gayas, one question. Only opioids can be used in preemptive analgesia?
No, ma'am. Other drugs also can be used.
Okay, like for example, commonly used. What are the commonly used drugs in preemptive?
Midazolam can be used, ma'am.
Midazolam is an analgesic. We are talking about analgesics, Gayas.
Paracetamol.
established ones are like you always give regional anesthesia. Many a times you use regional anesthesia combined with general anesthesia, and then you try to give the dose of the local anesthetic before the incision. So local anesthetics
Yes,
and
ma'am.
the other commonly used are the alpha 2 drugs like gabapentinoids, gabapentin, pregabalin. These are
Yes.
commonly used as preemptive analgesics.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. But gabapentin is generally used for chronic pain.
Yes,
Generally, but yes, there are
yeah,
certain studies in which they have
yeah.
used gabapentinoids for acute pain, like our OT setting. But generally, these days, gabapentinoids are used for chronic pain. Okay. Okay.
Sedation. Sedation caused by opioids are different from other hypnotics, which produce a state of detachment and indifference to surroundings and one's own body. Mood and subjective behavior, it causes loss of apprehension, detachment, lethargy, mental clouding, and inability to concentrate. Respiratory depression. The respiratory depression done by opioids are dose dependent, which is direct action on the central medullary respiratory centers, through which the carbon dioxide responsiveness and the hypoxic drive is depressed, which leads to the accumulation of PCO2, and the response of hypoxic drive is decreased after morphine, resulting in downward and rightward shift of CO2 curve and rise in PaCO2. It is clinically represented as decrease in respiratory rate more than decrease in tidal volume.
So it is very important. Respiratory depression, one of the most important side effects of opioids, especially morphine, okay, when given in large doses. And the typical pattern is say that respiratory rate will go down more than the tidal volume. Okay, so this is a characteristic of opioid respiratory depression, and the respiratory drive to increase CO2 is blunted. So the curve is shifted towards right and down.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Any
Meiosis.
additional findings? Like, yes, you're coming to meiosis. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
Meiosis. Normally, light induces the excitation of Edinger-Westphal nucleus, leading to its pupillary constrictions, which is inhibited by these stress like hypercarbia, hypoxia, and nociception. Opiates block this transmission by blocking the interneurons, which inhibit the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So, the pupillary constriction is caused. Mu and kappa agonist causes constriction of pupil by activating the parasympathetic nerve, inhibiting the pupil, and opiates inhibit this inhibitory interneurons,
Can
causing
you please
meiosis.
explain it here, Gayas? What is the pathway and where does the opioids inhibit?
Ma'am, opiates act on the Edinger-Westphal nucleus of oculomotor nerve. मतलब it will inhibit the interneurons, which is activated by the hypercarbia, hypoxia, and nociception.
Yes.
Normally, the hypercarbia, hypoxia, and nociception stimulate the inhibitory interneurons, which will
Yes.
inhibit the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So,
Yes.
this inhibition is inhibited by the opiates. So, the Edinger-Westphal nucleus is active now, which causes meiosis.
Yes. And what is this pupillometry? What is the significance of pupillometry?
Pupillometry is normally used in intraoperative see the measure of the pupil size after opioid administration, and with that the dose of the
Sorry, hello? Hello? Gayaz, you are not audible.
Yes,
Yeah.
can you reconnect?
Yeah. Okay. Hello?
Not audible.
Not audible.
We will need to give him a call or something to, because he may not be able to hear. He will not be hearing us.
Should I call him?
Yes.
Just a second, I'll do.
Yeah. Gayaz.
Hello?
Yes.
Has Gayas connected? No, na?
No. No.
Okay, let me give him a call then.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's back. He's back. Yeah, we just
Sorry, ma'am.
not.
Actually,
I
my
think.
network got disconnected.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Coming to muscle
Yeah.
rigidity.
Yeah, can you
Opiates.
come to that meiosis once? You were explaining pupillometry
Yes, ma'am.
and you disconnected, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Pupillometry is used intraoperative to guide, see the size of the pupil, through which the dose of the analgesics is modified.
Okay. Yeah, one quick question. So you have learned so far that the opioids are not CNS depressants and they're kind of neuroprotective agents. They maintain the cerebral metabolic rate. But why is that we have to give morphine in a precautionary way when it comes to neurosurgical patients? Anyone? I can see. Yeah, Gayaz, can you please tell?
Ma'am, actually,
Anyone?
Can call out name.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes. Who wants to
Ma'am,
answer?
ma'am, this is
Vijayavani. Yes.
ma'am, in patients, like if the tumor or if the surgery is involving the brain area or the respiratory center, it might even cause, and when the surgeon is operating at that site, even it can cause respiratory depression and more cause respiratory depression. To differentiate whether it is surgical or drug induced, so we might not use morphine in that.
Actually, very good.
Shipra, what was your question actually? Sorry.
What
And
else,
has she
Vijayavani?
answered?
What else?
Yeah,
What were
actually,
the other
the connection
causes?
was like breaking. I was asking that why is that the opioid analgesics are given in a precautionary way to neurosurgical patients when it comes to neurosurgical patients?
Okay.
Vijayavani, what are the other reasons?
Yeah.
Can you
Hello,
add on
ma'am.
Vijayavani? Yes.
Ma'am, ma'am, I thought my concern will be like whether it is induced
So you
if
want
the
to,
surgeon
you
is
will not
operating at the
want to
brainstem only,
differentiate
even
the
the.
cause of respiratory depression, right? Whether it is surgical cause
Yes,
or
ma'am. Yes.
Any
okay.
other
Drug
concern?
cause, drug
Any
induced.
other concern? And
Any
Dr.
other concern? Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
Yes.
ma'am, this is ma'am.
Hello?
Morphine causes causes respiratory depression, so causes hypercarbia. But for neurosurgical cases, we try to maintain a low
Okay.
PaCO2.
But but when you are giving anesthesia, you are already controlling the ventilation part of the patient, right? So at that point of time, hypocarbia is not that important. You are already controlling the ventilation. What else?
Hello?
Yes. Who wants to?
Ma'am?
Hmm?
Yes.
Hello?
Who is this? Please
Yes,
introduce yourself.
I'm Naresh, ma'am.
Yes.
Naresh, go ahead.
In in many neuro in many neurological diseases or neurosurgical indications, the P glycoproteins in the blood-brain barrier are disrupted or there is decreased expression of P glycoproteins. So the morphine metabolite can still enter into the brain through the blood-brain barrier.
Are you
Yes.
reading from the net? है
Hello?
गूगल खोला है क्या अभी कहीं पे?
Good evening, ma'am. I'm Rajeshwari.
Yes. Yes. Rajeshwari. Yeah.
Ma'am, it's difficult to assess the GCS of the patient.
Yes.
So,
Most importantly, how will you
Yes.
assess the
Okay.
GCS of the
Yes,
patient?
yes.
This is the most important
And
thing.
also the pupillary size.
Assessment, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so one is respiratory assessment, pupillary assessment, and GCS assessment. Okay.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you, Rajeshwari. Yeah, carry on, please.
thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Never.
Muscle rigidity. It is most common in pediatric population when the large and bolus dose of potent IV, fentanyl, and continuous have been given. So, it causes difficult mask ventilation and increased intrathoracic pressure while attempting IPPV. Forceful mask ventilation against a closed glottis may result in air entry into stomach and increase the risk of aspiration. So, the hemodynamic parameters changes during muscle rigidity are increase in cerebral venous pressure.
Are you seeing muscle rigidity clinically? We are all
No,
giving
ma'am.
fentanyl. Why?
No, ma'am.
Why?
Anyone? Any other resident who has seen?
Any one of you has seen muscle rigidity in ORs? We are giving fentanyl.
Here he is written common in pediatric population. We usually give a high opioid dose in cardiac patients. Any experience in cardiac patients when induction you are inducing and using high dose opioid and experiencing this? I think they may not have done cardiac posting or they have not seen. No volunteer, no one has seen this? Clinical experience? They haven't.
Okay.
So hemodynamic response, it increases cerebral venous pressure, increases pulmonary artery pressure, and increases the peripheral vascular resistance. Respiratory, it decreases the compliance, decreased the functional residual capacity, and decreased ventilation, and it causes hypercarbia and hypoxemia. Miscellaneous changes are it increases the oxygen consumption and intracranial pressure, and we can see the increase in fentanyl plasma levels. Prophylaxis, priming with non-depolarizing muscle relaxants, slow, intermittent, small doses of opiates can be given, and use of inhalational agents. It is treated with neuromuscular blocking agents and naloxone.
Yeah, so just quick point, we are also routinely not seeing this rigidity because firstly, we are giving slow and small doses of opioids. I'm talking about general, not cardiac. And generally we are, adding muscle relaxants and inhalational and IV induction agents. So in clinical practice, in routine OTs, generally we are not seeing muscle rigidity. It is, okay? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, carry on.
Why you want to prevent and treat it? What is the harm? What will happen? What is the danger?
Ma'am,
Yes.
it leads to the aspiration and the patient cannot be ventilated.
You have written difficult mask ventilation. You
Yes,
are
ma'am.
not able to ventilate the patient. So patient is going to desaturate, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So and may develop hypoxia.
Nausea and vomiting. The opiates stimulate the chemoreceptor trigger zone in area postrema, possibly by delta receptors, leading to the postoperative nausea vomiting. So it can be avoided with pre-medication with antiemetics like ondansetron, dexamethasone, droperidol, and it is treated with naloxone. Pleuritis, it is the most common side effect seen in opiates when given epidurally. So causes due to the histamine release or central action of the mu receptors. It is most commonly seen in skin of face, neck, and upper chest, which becomes flushed and warm with morphine. This effect of opiates are reversed by naloxone. Shivering, mepridine, butorphanol, and tramadol have anti-shivering properties, which is mediated through the kappa receptors. Effects on respiratory system, airway resistance. So the opiate increases the airway resistance, and it causes a dose-dependent decrease in ciliary activity. Direct action of bronchial smooth muscles leads to bronchospasm, and on indirect action, it releases histamine and increase the inflammation and edema.
What is
Morphine
the
and
clinical
mepridine.
significance of this? Why is this important? What is the precaution we need to take on a
We have to give H1N1 blockers and pre-medicate with the patient with antihistamines.
Okay, and what about in COPD patients coming for general anesthesia? What will be your choice of opioid analgesic?
So fentanyl will be given because
Yes,
it
why?
doesn't release histamine. Fentanyl
And
is
what will
inconsistent,
histamine
does not.
cause? Yeah.
eh, Histamine normally causes vasodilatation and increase the inflammation, edema
In
of the
You're
edema.
talking about airway, na? So it will lead to
Yes, ma'am.
further
Further
bronchospasm.
bronchospasm.
Yes, decrease the
Yes, ma'am.
ciliary activity, and it will cause respiratory depression and cough suppression, which are all unfavorable for the patients with COPD. That is why you prefer giving fentanyl in patients with COPD. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Cough suppression. Opiates depress cough by effects on medullary cough center, which is done more by the codeine. Opiates blunt or eliminate the somatic and autonomic response to tracheal intubation. Morphine blunts the cough reflex, triggers the chemoreceptor trigger zone, and causes pharyngeal dysfunction, incoordination of breathing and swallowing, which makes the patient prone for aspiration. Inhibition of signing and coughing promotes airway obstruction as well as basal atelectasis in patients on prolonged mechanical ventilation. So fentanyl congeners paradoxically causes provocation of cough, thought to be due to the imbalance between the sympathetic and vagal innervations of airway or stimulation of juxtacapillary irritant receptors. Respiratory depression. Respiratory depression may
So
occur as
Gayas,
early. Yes, ma'am.
Gayas,
Yes, ma'am.
hello, Gayas.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Hello.
So we are dealing with nowadays we are dealing with COVID patients, है ना?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
in these patients, are you giving fentanyl during intubation or not?
No, ma'am. We are
Will you
not
give
giving fentanyl. We
why
have to because it
before
causes
intubation?
before intubation we should not give fentanyl, ma'am. It paradoxically
Yeah,
causes
why?
cough.
Yes, yes. फिर क्या होगा cough से?
So we are exposed to the aerosols
Aerosols. Yes. You can give fentanyl after
after
intubation, है ना?
intubation, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Carry on. Continue.
Respiratory depression. It causes in a two-way mechanism. Early depression is caused by direct action on the central medullary respiratory centers, and delayed respiratory depression is due to the distribution of drugs from the periphery to the central compartment, which is mainly seen in fentanyl groups.
Look, please explain that slide once. Yeah.
Ma'am, after giving IV fentanyl
Yeah.
is most commonly redistributed to the peripheral tissues. 75% of fentanyl has been distributed to the peripheral tissues. So, after getting saturated, the drug reappears to the blood to the central compartment after some time. So, which leads to the delayed respiratory depression.
Okay.
Effect on cardiovascular system. Brainstem areas that integrate cardiovascular response and hemostasis are nucleus solitarius, dorsal vagal nucleus, nucleus accumbens, and parabranchial nucleus. Enkephalin containing neurons and opiate receptors are predominant in these sites. Opiates reduce the sympathetic response and enhance vagal and parasympathetic tone. Opiates protects the myocardium by enhancing the myocardial resistance to oxidative and ischemic stress mediated by the mitochondrial ATP-driven potassium channel signaling pathway. Heart rate. Usually opiates cause bradycardia resulting from the stimulation of vagal nucleus and blockage of sympathetic tone. In contrast, meperidine causes tachycardia due to its structural similarity to atropine. Cardiac contractility. Opiates given alone has no or minimal depression of cardiac contractility. Opiates given along with other anesthetic drugs, nitrous oxide, benzodiazepines, and barbiturates may cause myocardial depression and decrease in systemic vascular resistance and systemic blood pressure. Meperidine is myocardial depressant and should not be used in patients with borderline cardiac functions.
Okay. Again, a quick question. Will you be given opioids for patients in cardiovascular disease or cardiovascular instability? Any contraindications, pros and cons of morphine or opioid analgesia? Anyone? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, morphine is given in pulmonary edema and myocardial infarction.
Okay.
To decrease the pain. The mechanism of action is it causes vasodilatation, removes the blood from the pulmonary area, and it causes pooling of blood in the lower limbs
Are
in case of...
opioids considered to be cardiostable?
Yes, ma'am.
If there is a patient with a low BP in a shock, and if the patient comes for general anesthesia.
No, ma'am. It causes patient only who maintains with sympathetic tone. We cannot give morphine, ma'am.
Yes. So basically, the patients who have high sympathetic tone or the patients who are volume depleted. So only in those category of patients we should give opioids with caution. Otherwise, generally opioids are considered to be cardiostable. Except pethidine, which has atropine-like activity and is a myocardial depressant. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Blood pressure. Morphine causes orthostatic hypotension by release of histamine and vagal-mediated bradycardia and loss of compensatory sympathetic tone. Histamine release is seen with morphine, its semisynthetic derivatives, and pethidine. It is not seen with fentanyl and its congeners. Effect of histamine release can be minimized by pretreatment with H1 and H2 blockers. Relevance is patient should be in supine or head-low position while giving morphine, and it should be avoided in patients dependent on sympathetic tone of maintenance for the blood pressure. Patients like hemorrhagic shock and critical ill patients in severe sepsis. Effects on GIT. In GIT, it causes delayed gastric emptying, and the opioids cause biliary colic by constriction of the sphincter of OD and it increases the tone and decreases the propulsive action of both small and large intestine, which increases the transit time and resulting in constipation. Hello, ma'am. Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes.
Endocrine system and stress response. Opiates are capable of reducing the stress response by modulating the nociception at several levels of neuraxis and centrally mediated neuroendocrine responses. Opiates suppress the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis by dose-related decrease in ACTH, suppression of surgical induced increase in plasma cortisol. So stress response leads to release of catabolic hormones like cortisol, catecholamines, glucagon, and thyroxine, which leads to increased cardiac risk, increased protein catabolism, and the hyperglycemia. These are blocked
So this is a
very important,
very important function of opioids, both given systemically or through the neuraxial pathway. Opioids will result in blunting of stress response. So it will decrease the release of stress hormones in patients. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Opiates generally increase the growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, and prolactin, and decrease in luteinizing hormone, testosterone, estradiol, and oxytocin. So prolonged use of morphine or other opiates can lead to hypogonadism. Fentanyl and congeners are more effective than morphine in modifying the hormonal response to surgery. Morphine sulfate. Sertanil isolated a pure substance from opium and we named it as morphine after Morpheus, the Greek god of dreams. And morphine is the prototype opioid from which other drugs are derived. Morphine is available as 1 ml ampules containing 10 mg per ml or 15 mg per ml, and its oral tablets has 10 mg, 30 mg, or 60 mg of morphine. Route of administration of morphine is through intravascular, intramuscular, subcutaneous, epidural, intrathecal, oral, and inhalational. So onset of action of morphine after IM or subcutaneous dose is 10 to 20 minutes, and duration of action after intramuscular dose is 3 to 4 hours. It acts as a mu receptor agonist most commonly, and it also acts on kappa and delta receptors. Dose. The analgesic dose of morphine is 0.1 to 0.3 mg per kg in divided doses when given intravascular and intramuscularly.
Next slide, please.
Fentanyl citrate. It is a synthetic opiate.
Just a second. Gayaz, the previous slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. See, basically the IV dose is 0.1 to 0.3 milligram per kg in divided doses, and the epidural single dose is around 30 to 70 mics per kg, okay, which we are giving routinely. So we are giving between 30 to 50 mics per kg. 70 mics per kg is a high dose and is associated with higher incidence of respiratory depression. And the intrathecal dose is from 0.1 to 0.3 milligrams. Okay, so these are the morphine doses, and this you all should know.
Yes, ma'am.
Carry on, Gayas.
Fentanyl citrate, it is a synthetic opioid of phenylpiperidine derivative synthesized by Janssen Pharmaceutica in 1960. It is 75 to 125 times more potent than morphine. It is available as 2 ml and 10 ml ampoules containing 50 microgram per ml. Route of administration is IV, IM, subcutaneous, epidural, intrathecal, transdermal, nasal, and oral. Onset of action is immediate after IV and 78 minutes
Immediate
after.
is around 3 to 5 minutes after IV.
Yes, ma'am.
Immediate, yeah.
And 7 to 8 minutes after IM. Duration of action is 0.5 to 1 hour after IV and 1 to 2 hours after IM. IV bolus is given in 1 to 2 microgram per kg and continuous infusion of 0.5 to 3 microgram per kg per hour. Intrathecal single dose is 5 to 25 microgram. Epidural single dose is 50 to 100 microgram. Epidural continuous dose is given in range of 25 to 100 microgram per hour, and transdermally it is given as 25 microgram, 50 microgram, 75 or 100 microgram per hour. Oral transmucosal fentanyl citrate is given at a dose of 5 to 20 microgram per kg. To be used with caution in patients with respiratory failure due to the delayed respiratory depression that is which occurs by fentanyl. Ma'am, should I read all the drugs or we can?
Is there a need for sufentanil, alfentanil, and remifentanil? Just read them quickly.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Gayas.
Yes, ma'am.
Gayas.
Hello.
Can you hear me, Doctor?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Gayas. I'm Dr. Suman.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. You're audible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can.
Okay. Can we give fentanyl through any other route also? You have mentioned all routes, but is there
Yes,
any other route also for giving fentanyl?
Other route is.
Huh? Can we nebulize with fentanyl?
Actually, morphine can be nebulized. I have read morphine can be used
even
as nebulized.
fentanyl can be nebulized. You can do fentanyl nebulization also, and it is given for pain relief in emergency department, especially in pediatric patients.
Okay, ma'am.
So, do you know the dose? It's 2 mics per kg. Dose is same as 2 mics per kg for nebulization. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have not told about what is primary and secondary respiratory depression.
Ma'am, he will tell. He will tell, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Sufentanil, first synthesized in 1974. It is a thinner analog of fentanyl, 5 to 10 times more potent than fentanyl. Available as 1 ml and 5 ml ampoules containing 50 microgram per ml, and route of administration IV, intrathecal, epidural, and intranasal. It is rapid in onset and produce longer duration of analgesia than fentanyl.
Doses? I think you can skip the dose. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Alfentanil hydrochloride. It is an analog of fentanyl, and it is 1/5 to 1/10 potency of fentanyl, available as 50 microgram per ml or 5 milligram per ml dose. It has rapid onset and 1/3 duration of action compared to fentanyl. Route of administration available is IV, epidural, and intranasal. Remifentanil hydrochloride. It is a phenylpiperidine derivative with ester linkage 15 to 20 times potent than fentanyl, available as 1 milligram, 2 milligram, 5 milligram vial in a powder form. Route of administration is through IV. Doses bolus 1 microgram per kg or continuous 0.25 to 3 microgram per kg per minute. It is context insensitive and it has a characteristic to. Ma'am? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So basically, remifentanil
I think he can read only in points of all these drugs.
Yes, ma'am.
We are just can tell only main differences of all which we are not using.
Okay.
Rather
ma'am.
than reading
this. Okay, ma'am. Okay. Okay, so remifentanil hydrochloride. Yeah. Methadone, I think you can skip.
Yes, ma'am. Meperidine.
Yeah.
It is a synthetic opiate synthesized in 1939. It is a phenylpiperidine derivative. It is agonist at mu and kappa opioid receptors. Its structure is similarity to atropine, which causes tachycardia, dry mouth, and blurred vision, and structurally similar to local anesthetics, and causes sodium channel blocker, which can be given intrathecally. It is metabolized into meperidinic acid and norpinephrine. Norpinephrine has a propensity to cause CNS side effects and get accumulated in renal failure. Dose of meperidine is 1 to 2 mg per kg. It is used in postoperative shivering, preferred opioid in obstetrics due to less neonatal suppression, and preferred analgesics in biliary colic. Interaction with monoamine oxidase inhibitors, meperidine can cause either excitatory or depressive action. Excitatory action is due to the excess central serotonergic activity, leading to the agitation, headache, hemodynamic instability, fever, rigidity, and convulsion. So depressive action is due to the monoamine oxidase inhibitors block the hepatic microsomal enzymes, leading to the accumulation of meperidine and causing respiratory depression, hypertension, and coma. Tramadol hydrochloride, it is a prodrug. It is a synthetic phenylpiperidine analog of codeine, which is metabolized by cytochrome P52D6 and O-demethylation. And the O-demethylation product is the active component of tramadol. It is 70% oral bio. It has 70% oral bioavailability and 20% protein bound. It is available as 1 ml, 2 ml ampoules containing 50 mg per ml. Mechanism of action is it is mu, kappa, and delta receptor agonist and inhibit the reuptake of serotonin and noradrenaline. Route of administration of tramadol is IV, IM, and oral. Opioid agonist and antagonist. Nalarpine was the first agonist-antagonist opioid successfully synthesized by Vigil, Land, and Erickson in 1942. Nalarpine is not used nowadays due to its dysmorphic actions. Yeah. These drugs bind to the kappa and delta receptors and exert partial agonistic action, which is a limited response, or on binding to mu receptors, these produce limited response or no effect. Competitive antagonism done by these drugs has high affinity but poor efficacy. They produce analgesia with limited respiratory depression and low abuse potential. In addition, some have dysphoric reactions. Ceiling effect is seen in these group of drugs, by which on increasing the dose, additional response is not produced.
So basically opioid agonist and antagonist. So generally they are agonist and delta and kappa receptors and competitive antagonist at mu receptors. So yes, having a competitive antagonism at mu receptors means that they will have analgesia but with a ceiling effect and also with a limited respiratory depression. But the side effects will be dysphoric reactions because they are also active at the kappa receptors. Okay.
Yes, yeah. Pentazocine, it is a benzomorphin derivative, it is a weak antagonistic at mu receptor and more agonistic action at kappa and delta receptors. The oral availability is 20% and it has an elimination half-life of 2 hours. Oral dose is 50 to 100 mg, IV dose 30 to 60 mg. Onset of action is after IV is 2 to 3 minutes and after IM is 20 minutes. Plasma concentration of catecholamine is increased with increase in heart rate, BP, blood pressure, and cardiac work is increased. So it should be avoided in cardiac patients. Most common side effect of pentazocine is sedation. Nausea and vomiting is less common and pentazocine has psychomimetic action effects.
Pentazocine is Fortwin, which you must have commonly heard.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Buprenorphine is a dependent.
I think you can derivative. Give it.
Yes, buprenorphine. Yeah. Opioid antagonist. It is an N-alkyl derivative of oxymorphone. Minor changes in chemical structure of the agonist convert the drug to antagonist. Most common substitution is alkyl for an methyl group. It has high affinity to opioid receptors to displace the agonist, and the naloxone, naltrexone, nalmefene are pure mu opioid antagonist. Naloxone hydrochloride. It is a non-selective antagonist at all three opioid receptors used for reversal of respiratory depression caused by opioid overdose and for the treatment of opioid poisoning. It is available as 3 concentrations, 20 microgram per ml, 400 microgram per ml, and 1000 microgram per ml. Onset of action is 1 to 2 minutes and duration of action is 30 to 60 minutes. The dose of naloxone is 1 to 4 microgram per kg IV for reversal of respiratory depression, which is given in small incremental doses every 2 to 3 minutes until the restoration of spontaneous respiration is attained.
Okay, so naloxone you give when you suspect that you have given excess of morphine or an opioid agonist and there is a respiratory depression. So maximum you can give up to a dose of 0.4 to 0.8 milligrams, and you have to give slow incremental doses of IV naloxone, and you have to watch for spontaneous respiration. What will happen if you give excess of naloxone?
It may lead to increase in heart rate, blood pressure, and central sympathetic activities increase, ma'am.
Yes,
So it may
will
cause
also
neurogenic.
Yeah, it will antagonize the analgesic action as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay.
So re-narcotization. Naloxone has shorter half-life with duration of action lasting for 30 to 60 minutes. So the reappearance of respiratory depression may occur if the opioid being antagonized has a longer action, example morphine. Since morphine has a longer duration of action which acts for 4 hours, but naloxone has shorter action which has 30 to 60 minutes.
Reappearance
So
of respiration may occur if opioid being antagonized has a longer shorter
hello.
Hello, ma'am. Suman ma'am.
Suman ma'am.
So another reason for recurrence of respiratory depression is mobilization of opiates from its peripheral storage sites, which is done by fentanyl. Opiates which are not reversed by naloxone or buprenorphine and pentazocine. The buprenorphine binds very strongly to the opiate receptors, and doxaparam is used for its reversal. Naltrexone, it has two advantages over naloxone. It is longer acting, and plasma half-life is 8 to 12 hours. It is orally active and given in a dose of 5 to 10 mg orally. It is used in opioid addiction. Clinical use of opiates. It is used for analgesia through.
Hello? Yes.
Can naloxone be used in children also?
Naloxone can be used in children also. Yes, naloxone can be used in children also. Yes, definitely.
Naloxone is used in neonates. You know, when you are given this thing during cesarean, if you have used morphine, then to counteract neonatal respiratory depression, you do use naloxone in neonates. In fact, it's an emergency drug.
Yes.
Available in all LSCS OTs. It should be there.
Yes.
Suppose you have a cardiac patient, a patient with mitral stenosis, and you don't have fentanyl, and you have to use morphine to blunt the cardiovascular responses because mother takes priority over the fetus. Then how will you treat the neonatal respiratory depression? It is only by reversing the effect of morphine, which has entered into the neonate, by giving naloxone to the fetus. In fact, you should know the endotracheal dose of naloxone in that case, IV and endotracheal dose.
And also in the ACLS guidelines, also naloxone features because of the opioid dependence that US patients have. There are many patients who have opioid dependence.
Yes, it is in the PALS guidelines. Naloxone is an emergency drug, not in ACLS, but definitely in PALS it is. And it is supposed to be present in all the obstetric OTs and labor rooms as a neonatal and pediatric emergency drug. Okay?
And what is the endotracheal dose?
That is the homework for today.
Okay.
Okay. Proceed, Gayaz.
Analgesia. Analgesia can be given by patient-controlled analgesia, regional analgesic techniques, transdermal therapeutic systems, iontophoresis, extended-release epidural morphine, and it is used for sedation, balanced anesthesia, and total intravenous anesthesia. Patient-controlled analgesia. It is based on the negative feedback.
I think you can skip this. Yeah.
Regional analgesic techniques. Opiates are used in epidural space as well as intrathecally. The epidural dose of opioid is 5 to 10 times the intrathecal dose. The mechanism of action of opiates is it acts through the dorsal horn of spinal cord interneuron and inhibits the release of neurotransmitters. Single dose of intrathecal administration of lipophilic opioids is useful in situations where rapid analgesic onset, moderate duration of action, and minimal risk of respiratory depression is needed. The single dose of intrathecal administration of hydrophilic opioids is useful in post-operative analgesia in patients monitored on an inpatient basis for whom a longer duration of analgesia would be beneficial. So the lipophilic drugs like fentanyl has rapid diffusion across the dura mater and which has quick onset and shorter duration of action. It produces a segmental effect and can be used only when the catheter tip is close to the incisional dermatome. And coming to the hydrophilic compounds, it has a slow diffusion across the dura mater and it has delayed onset and longer duration of action. It has the potential to migrate to the cephalate in the CSF due to the bulk CSF flow. After intrathecal administration of opiates, the lipophilic drugs show limited cephalate migration in CSF due to the uptake into the spinal cord, and the lipophilic drug or the hydrophilic drugs remain in CSF for longer duration and show cephalate migration. The underlying cause for this bulk flow of CSF from lumbar region to the cephalate direction.
Okay, and also just can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah, and also the site of the action in lipophilic drugs, the effects which you see are at the spinal level and the systemic level. But with hydrophilic opioids, it's mainly either spinal or supraspinal. Okay, and you should know that the early and delayed respiratory depression. Is that in the next slide?
Yes, ma'am. It's next slide.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after giving the epidural administration of opiates, it goes in three ways: the systemic absorption via the epidural venous plexus and diffusion across the dura mater into the CSF, and it is uptaken by the epidural fat. After systemic absorption via epidural venous plexus, it reaches the systemic blood and gives the analgesic action. After diffusing across the dura mater into the CSF, it gains access to the mu opioid receptors on the substantia gelatinous of the spinal cord and gives analgesia at the spinal level. So drug doses of the individual drugs are given in this table. Should I read those or?
No, I think we have already covered it.
Yes, ma'am.
Fentanyl, morphine, yeah.
So side effects of neuraxil opiates. Side effects due to systemic absorption and due to the presence of drug in the CSF. Due to the systemic absorption is sedation, nausea, vomiting, and respiratory depression. And presence of drug in CSF is pruritus, urinary retention, and respiratory depression. So sedation is most common side effect seen in neuraxil opiates, and the most severe side effect seen in neuraxil opiates is respiratory depression. The respiratory depression can be as early or late. The early respiratory depression occurs within first 2 hours after administration of neuraxil opiates, and the reason is due to the systemic uptake of opiates via spinal cord vessels. The late respiratory depression occurs between 6 to 12 hours after the administration of neuraxil opiates, and it is due to the diffusion of opiate into the CSF and migration into the medullary respiratory center.
So this is the reason why we are careful with hydrophilic opioids like morphine, and we have to be careful about the dose in which we are giving the hydrophilic opioids through epidural route. So generally we follow up till 30 to 50 mics per kg. 70 mics per kg should be given to a patient only if there is a high dependency unit and there is a monitoring facility available. Otherwise, there is a risk of late respiratory depression with higher doses of epidural morphine.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, carry on.
Transdermal therapeutic system. These are medicated adhesive patches placed on the skin to deliver specific dose of analgesics. Fentanyl patches are alternatives to sustained release of oral morphine, available in 25, 50, 75, and 10 microgram per hour sizes, which provide drugs for 2 to 3 days. So the peak plasma concentration is achieved after 12 to 24 hours, and depot remains in the skin for about 24 hours after the patch is removed. Those on fentanyl patch may require oral morphine on a per-run basis. Transmucosal drug delivery. The oral transmucosal fentanyl citrate or fentanyl lollipop is a solid dose of fentanyl incorporated in a sweetened lozenge. It can be used at dose of 5 to 20 microgram per kg, and peak action is seen after 15 to 30 minutes after administration.
So this is basically used for pediatric pre-anesthetic medication, fentanyl lollipops.
Yes, ma'am. Iontophoresis. It is an active drug delivery across the skin. It is small and charged. It has small and charged lipophilic molecules. Opiates fentanyl inotropic transdermal system is small, self-contained system with patient-activated button placed on the upper arm or the chest, and it is needle-free. When the patient presses the button on the anionic side, the drug is delivered to the blood and moves towards the cathode. Extended release epidural morphine, which is known as Depo-Dor. It is a novel drug. That delivers morphine by using a lipoform technology, where the morphine is encapsulated in the lipoform. The drug delivery system composed of multivesicular lipid particles containing the non-concentrated aqueous chambers that encapsulate the active drug, which is released slowly in the epidural space. The dose of the extended epidural morphine is 5 to 15 milligram. Compared to the single shot epidural morphine, Depo-Dor provides a long duration of postoperative pain control. Side effect is similar to the epidural morphine. Coming to non-opioid analgesics, non-opioid analgesics are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, alpha-2 adrenergic agonist, ketamine, local anesthetics, steroids, tricyclic antidepressants, and anticonvulsants, which normally used for analgesia in a patient. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs is a diverse class of drugs with anti-inflammatory, analgesic, and antibiotic properties. These inhibit the biosynthesis of prostaglandins. These are termed peripheral analgesics by the site of their action at the tissue damage site. It does not cross blood-brain barrier and has less side effects than opiates. Characteristics of NSAIDs. It decreases the activation and sensitization of peripheral nociceptors, attenuate inflammatory response, and it has absence of dependence and addiction potential. It gives a preventive analgesia. It has absence of depression or breathing, less nausea and vomiting compared to opiates, long duration of action, and absence of cognitive effects. So, on injury to the normal injury to the tissue, membrane phospholipids, which are activated by the phospholipase A, produce arachidonic acid, and from there the prostaglandins are synthesized. These require phospholipase A, A2, and cyclooxygenase, which is inhibited by steroids and NSAIDs. Ketorolac trometanium, it is a pyrrolopyrrole derivative, equal efficacy to morphine in postoperative pain. It is rapidly absorbed after oral IM administration. It has high plasma protein binding and 60% excreted unchanged urine. Plasma off time is 5 to 7 hours. The dose of ketorolac is 50 to 30 milligram IM or IV every 4 to 6 hours and 10 to 20 milligram every 6 hours as oral dose. Continuous use of ketorolac more than 5 days is not recommended. It causes dizziness, dyspnea, nausea, and pain at site of injection. It should not be given to patients on oral anticoagulants. It is not indicated for pre-anesthetic medication or for obstetric analgesia. It is used for postoperative pain, acute musculoskeletal pain, renal colic, migraine, and pain due to metastasis. Selective COX-2 inhibitor, celecoxib.
I think you can leave this. You can leave this.
Paracetamol.
Yes.
It is a para-aminophenol derivative introduced in 1955 by McNeil Laboratories. It is well absorbed orally and 1/4 plasma protein mode. It is available as 2 ml ampoules containing 300 mg, and the tablet formulations are 500 mg, 650 mg, and syrup is 125 mg per ml. Suppositories it is 80 mg, 160 mg, 325 mg, 1 gram. In IV preparation, it is available as 1 gram in 100 ml normal soil. TF of paracetamol is 2 to 3 hours. Route of administration can be oral, intramuscular, IV, and rectal. Dose is 7.5 milligram per kg less than 10 years and 15 milligram per kg more than 10 years, and 500 to 1000 milligram every 6 hours, maximum not exceeding 4 grams per day. Mechanism of action: it acts as a reducing co-substrate on the POX site and the peroxidase site and lessens the availability of ferryl porphyrin 11 radical action. So from that, it decreases the transformation of PGG2 to PGH2. PGG2 is an unstable intermediate and it is converted to PGH2 from which the prostaglandins are produced. So the paracetamol acts at this site and inhibits the peroxidase enzyme. It also has another action by stimulating the effect on descending serotonergic pathway. Paracetamol is used in postoperative pain, musculoskeletal pain, toothache, pregnant. It can be used in pregnant patients and lactating mothers. Dysmenorrhea, much safer than aspirin in terms of GA manifestations and used in all age groups. Acute paracetamol poisoning occurs especially in small children who have low hepatic glucuronide conjugation ability. Toxicity occurs with dose of more than 150 mg per kg or more than 10 grams in adults, and fatality is seen in more than 250 mg per kg. Early manifestation of poisoning are nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, liver tenderness. After 12 to 18 hours, hepatic renal tubular necrosis sets in. Patient goes into hypoglycemia and progresses to coma. The fulminant hepatic failure is due to the metabolite accumulated in the liver N-acetyl para-benzoquinonimide, and eventually patient dies. Treatment
Gayas,
acute. Yes, ma'am.
sorry, I'm interrupting you. Actually, only 5 minutes, 4 minutes rather. So can you just quickly, 10 slides left. Can you just quickly brief up,
Yes,
like
ma'am.
only the salient points? Yeah.
Diclofenac sodium, it has a good tissue permeability and concentration in
Just don't
synovial
read
fluids.
only the salient points.
Ma'am, so the left-out drugs are alpha-2 agonist, ketamine, and
Dexmed.
Dexmed, ma'am.
Yeah.
So
I think
the
we shall we end it here? Well, like how?
Can we
What
continue?
are the topic? Alpha 2.
Yeah, it's still
We
7.
can
I don't know
continue
if
for
I don't know if it will
another
be
5-10 minutes. Let's finish
okay.
it another 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on then. Yeah.
alpha-2 agonist, chlorinated hydrochloride, is selective partial alpha-2 agonist and have some actions on alpha-1 receptors. The ratio of alpha-1 to alpha-2 selectivity is 200 to 1. Mechanism of action is activating alpha-2 receptors in presynaptic sympathetic preganglion neurons and primary efferents, and it inhibits the release of neurotransmitters. It is available as 1 ml ampoules containing 150 microgram, oral preparations of 100, 200, and 300 microgram strength. Route of administration of clonidine is oral, transdermal, IV, intrathecal, and epidural. Doses, it is for pre-medication, it is given as 5 microgram per kg, which decrease the use of PCA morphine and reduce the incidence of postoperative nausea and vomiting. 0.5 to 1 microgram per kg enhance the efficacy and duration of local anesthetics. Side effects, it causes sedation, hypertension, bradycardia if the dose exceeds 150 microgram. Dexmedetomidine hydrochloride, it is potent and highly selective alpha-2 agonist with 1600 to 1. Available as 2 ml vial containing
Next slide,
100
please.
microgram.
Can you? Yeah.
Ketamine hydrochloride, it is a non-commutative NMDA antagonist, mu-opioid agonist. It is traditionally an intraoperative anesthetics. At anesthetic and subanesthetic doses, it attenuates the central sensitization and opioid tolerance. It is available as vials containing 10 mg per ml and 50 mg per ml. The preservative used in ketamine hydrochloride is benzethonium chloride and chlorbutanol. The benzethonium chloride is allergic tendency and chlorbutanol has neurotoxicity. Preservative-free preparations are used for central neuraxis blocks. Sedation and analgesia is given at a dose of 0.2 to 0.8 mg per kg IV over 2 to 3 minutes and 2 to 4 mg per kg IM.
So these doses of ketamine is very important. You should know all. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Local anesthetics, lignocaine provide analgesia by suppressing the activity of sodium channels in neurons that respond to noxious stimuli. It enables the voltage-gated sodium channels. IV lignocaine, oral mexilectin, oral tocainide are effective in chronic pain conditions. Lignocaine hydrochloride is available as 2% solution. IV 5% heavy used in intrathecal use. It is made heavy by adding It is made hyperbaric by addition of 1.5% dextrose. 4% 10% solution is used for mucosal analgesia. The preservative used for lignocaine is methylparaben. Topical 5% lignocaine has been used in postherpetic neuralgia. Calcium channel blockers. Opening of calcium channel is an important step of synaptic transmission, which facilitates the release of neurotransmitter. The intracellular calcium concentration also modulates cell membrane excitability and initiates a cascade of intracellular response. Therefore, blocking the calcium channels plays a significant role in modulating both nociceptive and antinociceptive process. Yes, ma'am.
So the references here, Gayaz has shared the references. You can go through the topic. Already some of you must have read the topic from Miller, and you need to revise the topic. And also go in detail about, read in detail about the Dexmed, ketamine, and other adjuvant drugs that we were not able to discuss fully. And if you have any queries, I think Dr. Shipra will be available
Yes.
and will be happy to solve the
Yes.
queries. You can always contact her on WhatsApp. You can ask any of the teachers. You can contact me. Gayas can help you. So feel free to resolve your queries by approaching us on WhatsApp group. Right?
Yeah, and I will suggest that it's a
And
very important topic. Just read it thoroughly, because after that you'll, and any questions, just feel free to ask. Yes,
and all of
Manisha?
you, please
Yeah.
share your, ma'am, they should share their PPTs at least prior to, 1 or 2 days prior to their class.
Yes, we were
So
late,
that
Manisha,
we
and we
can,
really
everyone
apologize for
can.
that. Yeah. We were late in sharing. We were not ready. So we really apologize for that.
Dr.
No,
Shipra?
ma'am.
Dr. Shipra?
Yeah.
Dr.
Yes, ma'am.
Shipra, would local
Anita
anesthetics,
ma'am wants to say something. Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
would local anesthetics come under this topic? I think the topic was analgesic drugs, wasn't it?
Ma'am, yes,
Yeah,
but
ma'am.
local anesthetic drugs also have mild analgesic actions by acting,
Yeah.
by inhibiting the sodium channels, and specifically, ma'am, lignocaine and mexalotine. So that is why briefly we have talked about that here.
And these days, IV local and ma'am, it can come in recent advances. Like
Yes,
they can
ma'am.
have this question in recent advances because lot of research is going on role of IV lignocaine
Yes,
as
ma'am,
an
as an
analgesic.
analgesic agent, and also, ma'am, for topical analgesia. But lignocaine per se is a local anesthetic which can be used as an analgesic, and so is pethidine. Pethidine also has LA-like activity by inhibiting sodium channel, and it is also an analgesic. So that is why we have just covered that.
Yeah, it can be asked in the recent advances section.
Because conventionally it was never included, but maybe now, yes. You're correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, recently, ma'am, the research is going on. Though it's like research is coming up, but maybe they can have a question in recent advances. Like ketamine also again is come up in acute pain very much. So acute and chronic pain, both ketamine is also has come back. So maybe they can be asked.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am.
yeah. Any other comments, Shipra, or we shall end up?
No, I think from my side we have discussed, I think, all the important points. But
Right.
Dr. Dipti, Anjali ma'am, Anisha, any other inputs from your side?
I think
Yeah,
it
I
has
think they
been
can.
No,
beautifully
ma'am, I
covered.
think
Everything
everything
has
is
been
covered.
discussed, and they have to go back and
They also need to read and
Yes.
come up with the questions and queries. Not and like some of the students have participated today. Rajeshwari, Vijayavani is very active. Ananya is
Yes.
always ready to answer. So others also should put in a little more effort. And for any queries related to this topic, you can always contact any one of us. And Gyaz has done a very good job.
Yeah, thank you,
And
Gayas.
Dr. Shipra also nicely moderated the session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay then, right?
Okay.
We'll end up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Bye,
ma'am. Thank you,
everyone.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for participation.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.